we got 5 or 6 versions of the truth here. And then we were always going back and forth. I need data from you, from the tax team. Controllership needed it from me. Tax needed it from controllership. And so then we got smart and created the consolidated, call it the Uber spreadsheet of data, right? And we built all these tabs with entities, accounts, counterparties, officers and directors, signatories, reference data, and it became this common definition for everybody.
This week's episode of the Treasury Truth or Dare podcast is powered by Treasury 4. Treasury 4 is a cloud-native platform built for speed, insight, and control. Companies can onboard Treasury 4 in days, not months, and unify cash, entities, accounts, payments, and forecasts in one intelligent, connected hub. Treasury 4 empowers companies to move faster, plan smarter, and decide with confidence. Hello, everyone. This is Ernie Humphrey. I'm your host for the Treasury Truth or Dare podcast. I'm really excited to have with me today Ed Barrie. He's the co-founder and chief product officer at Treasury 4. He's had an amazing career as not only a treasury leader, but also as a technologist. So, Ed, welcome to the podcast. And why don't you give us a little bit about your background before we dive in today?
Great. Thanks, Ernie. I'm really happy to be here and excited to be chatting with you today. My background is really as a treasury practitioner for over 20 years. After college, I spent 10 years working at a broker-dealer and investment advisor. And then in 2002, I had the opportunity to get into the wonderful, amazing, challenging, interesting world of treasury. And that started at Microsoft in 2002. The opportunity to join their global corporate treasury in Redmond under George Zinn, the longest serving treasurer, I believe, and really just found myself in this really interesting and unique space of treasury within an organization and how it works to support the company and the company's growth initiatives, but also working with banks, financial services partners, capital markets, and all these other aspects of supporting the organization. So I had the opportunity to spend 7 years there. I led their initiative to be one of the first corporates on Swift. And then from Microsoft, I went on to Itron, a global leader in the smart meter, smart grid space serving the utility industry. I served as their assistant treasurer for 6 years, responsibility for global FX, global treasury technology and operations. And again, got them onto Swift and leveraged Swift for communicating with all their banks. Then went on in 2015 to Tableau software, data visualization, data analytics leader to serve as their treasurer and build their treasury team from scratch. So that was a fantastic experience there. And it was really fun now being able to use their products, bring in treasury data and analyze and visualize treasury data. Tableau was acquired by Salesforce in August of 2019, and I spent 2 years as part of Salesforce's treasury team leading strategic initiatives and the integration of Tableau. So it's really been a fun journey through across the world of treasury and seeing lots of different things here.
Thank you so much, Ed, and that's the reason why we're honored to have Ed with us as our guest today. So before we dive in, just if you haven't had a chance to join us before, we're going to have several rounds of Truth or Dare, where I'll ask Ed to share with us a Treasury Truth or take a dare. And then after a few rounds, I'll give Ed the opportunity to have some fun with me and give me a dare. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off. Ed, would you like to start with a truth or we're going to go right for a dare?
I'm going to start with the truth. I don't want to embarrass myself too bad, so we'll start there.
We already got a good sense of this, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper. In which specific areas are you most passionate in Treasury?
I would say application of technology in treasury is at the top of that list. And I'm not a developer, I'm not a programmer, but I would say I'm a technologist. I like to tinker and see how or technology can be applied within treasury. I'd say the second area that I really love is foreign exchange management. You know, the aspect of FX management, what is exposure? I think one of the misunderstood things about FX is that you really need to understand the accounting treatment of transactions in order to then manage exposures, put in hedging programs. And the third area of treasury that I really like is cash management, really cash forecasting. How can you drive more precision around using your data for more precision-based cash flow forecasts? So those are my three passion areas of treasury.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, let's go ahead and go to round two. Are we going to go for another truth or are we going to go for a dare?
Well, I think I'm gonna stick with
All
the
right.
theme of truth.
All right.
So I try to be a truthful person.
There you go. So, kind of alongside with your passion, given your background, what made it the right time for you to co-found your own company and deliver the solution, maybe that you always wanted as a treasury practitioner?
Oh, that's a great question, Ernie. I think what made it the right time for me is a couple of things. I had a great experience across all those companies, Microsoft, Itron, Tableau, and Salesforce. I had the opportunity across many of those companies to win several industry awards, including Treasury Today Adam Smith Awards, Treasury and Risk Alexander Hamilton Awards. And then during my time at Tableau, we never actually implemented a treasury management system. We built an internal treasury reporting platform where we could connect lots and lots of data. So, bank statement data, payment data, investment accounting data, investment custody, foreign exchange trades. We could link that up with ERP data. And then one of the things that really became a differentiator, or really interesting, I should say, during my time at Tableau was kind of coming across this idea, foundation of legal entity management and kind of reference data management, meaning financial account management. So as we built this at Tableau, and we built lots of really interesting and fun dashboards, visualizations, analytics, people were coming to me and saying, wow, why doesn't Tableau sell this as a
Mm,
product? This is what we need. We need to be able to incorporate our investment accounting data. We need to incorporate our corporate card data. We need to pull in ERP data. And so that really started opening up my eyes for data, the
mhm.
value of data. How do you put data in the hands of people and empower them with tools, visualization tools to really make sense of all of this and tie it together and to drive insights for their organization? And so with that in mind, COVID started and we got sent home to work from home back in March of 2020. Found myself with a little extra time in the evenings, and I had stayed connected with two former colleagues from Itron. Steve Helmbrecht, who was Itron's chief financial officer for 10 years, Nathan Brown, who was assistant treasurer at Itron with me. And so the three of us be chatting kind of at night, talking about, well, what does next generation technology look like? What does it look like for treasury? Where do you start? What were the pain points we've collectively had at Microsoft, Itron, Tableau, Salesforce, and other companies? And what will we do differently versus the other solutions, third party solutions that we purchased and implemented? The intersection with ERP, the connectivity and integrations that we built, and really how do you take advantage of the data? So we were noodling on that and talking about that. I was still doing my day job at Salesforce, which was fantastic and wonderful, but it just really gave me an opportunity, give me time and the opportunity to rethink and collaborate with Steve and Nathan. And ultimately that turned into
Yeah.
Treasury 4, what would become
Yeah.
Treasury 4, with a focus on data. Yeah, at the end of the day, we envision ourselves as a data platform for the office of the CFO, principally treasury, but extending into other aspects with tax, corporate
Right.
legal, controllership, internal audit, and connecting external partners to that
Right.
data, whether it's auditors, banking partners, and so
Mm.
forth.
Right. Absolutely. Love it. Just as few things you touched on. I was really versed in the treasury tech space, and I really believe what you call entity four, as you mentioned. Just all that information we had to chase around data. We should want to be the hub of all the information, right? Be the hub of legal tax, all those good things, because that gives us a seat at the strategic table. So to see you guys, doing that is amazing. And I always talk about relationships, right? And you're actually plugging people in to have better relationships with everyone internally, removing silos, externally, your bankers, your auditors, understanding AP and AR, and how everything comes together. So, love that you are really empowering people to have a seat at the strategic table.
I would not say that was our intention to start with. It was not at the strategic level, but it was really more at the collaboration level. This idea of starting with a foundation of legal entity and we extended it to financial account management, not just bank
Right.
accounts, but all the other types of financial accounts. And then now what we see is that data set and having that view is allowing Treasury to have much more deeper relationships and constructive dialogue and partnership with the other stakeholders of the organization and be at that strategic table. And the funny thing is about this, we kind of stumbled on it. We've always worked with entity data and account data. But if I go back and look at my time at Tableau, when I started there in 2015, I came in and I was just like, first week, I'm trying to figure out, well, who are the entities? What's the org chart? What are the accounts? Who are the signatories? Who are the banks they work with? What other types of financial accounts, investment or merchant processing? Like, what does that landscape look like? And I got pointed to, 4 or 5 different spreadsheets. Legal had a
Mhm.
spreadsheet, tax had one, accounting had one, internal audit had one. And I did a really smart thing, which is say, I'll create a treasury version of the truth. So now we got 5 or 6 versions of the truth here. And then we were always going back and forth. I need data from you, from the tax
Yeah,
team.
right.
Controllership needed it from me, tax needed it from controllership. And so then we got smart and created the consolidated, call it the Uber spreadsheet
Mhm.
of data, right? And we built all these tabs with entities, like parties, officers and directors, signatories, reference data, and it became this common definition for everybody. And what we saw at Tableau was it created a common language and a common understanding for everybody who was touching this data. And it made it easier to import and export data because now you had the ability to translate and say this code value in this system, which represents an entity, maps to this code in this system. And now we can start moving data around more, freely, understanding the mappings and assignments around it. Kind of developed our understanding around is that entity management, I mean, intuitively, we know that Treasury owns financial accounts, bank accounts, and all that. That's Treasury's responsibility. Who owns entity data? And when you think about it, that's the big issue because there is no central owner of entity data. It's much like CRM software. Who owns the customer record? Is it sales? Is it sales operations? Is it the services? Like who owns that? The same thing can be said around entity data. There's no single owner of that data set inside of an organization. It's kind of shared and dispersed ownership. So now creating a platform that everybody can share and have a common record, a gold copy, as it were, of that information and leverage it for more effective use across the organization creates a big unlock for everybody, especially for Treasury in working with their external banking partners and thinking about client onboarding and KYC. Big revelation for us.
Yeah, also just things that come to mind is we should be wanting to be more involved in counterparty risk management. It seems like that's also a natural understanding of having the data and then unlocking the value of the data you have and understanding that. I think that's a big asset that companies have that they don't really leverage. So,
I think a couple of examples of that, Ernie, are things like intercompany agreements, right? Tax owns that. And I've often gone to Treasury peer group meetings, talking with other people responsible for foreign exchange management. And they'll say, well, I don't know what really drives our FX exposure. It just shows up in the balance sheet, which is fine. But, really you should understand the drivers of it. And oftentimes at many companies, it's intercompany. And so then, okay, now I need to drill down and understand what is the agreement? What's the billing currency? Is it different than the functional currency of the entity? And making sense of that data and those relationships, the relationships between different types of data become very helpful for Treasury.
yeah, when I worked at corporate treasury, we had only one guy understood all the consolidations. So we were trying to manage, right, our currency exposures, translation exposures, and that institutional knowledge was with one person in those relationships. So it's powerful, to create a place where more you can have more than one person share the knowledge with everyone so you don't get stuck when the person has to leave and you can do a better job. The visibility is key. I said you can't manage what you can't see. That's one of my favorites. So
Yeah, 100% right. I absolutely agree with that. And there is so much institutional knowledge that builds up within people that if it was captured in a platform or a system, it actually creates more value for the organization and allows Treasury specifically to manage risks, cash flow forecasting, client onboarding or KYC much more efficiently.
let's get back to our Treasury Truth or Dare question rounds here. Okay, are we gonna go for another truth, or are we gonna spice things up and do a dare?
I guess I'll try spicing it up with a dare. So
I love this one. I came up with this one. If you were stranded on a desert island with someone at your current company or previous company, who would you choose and why?
I would actually choose Hunter from our team here. He's one of our developers. He was an Eagle Scout, and he is just very resourceful in what he does. He's very resourceful, comes up with creative ways to solve problems, leans in, and he's just a fun person to work with. Was dependent on someone, help me at Desert Island. I would look to Hunter because he would probably figure out how to solve it, make sure we at least had fresh water.
That just kind of made my little light bulb go off. Is like maybe when you're hiring someone, you should ask yourself that question and then map some of those qualities, right? Because I think sometimes we get stuck on the technical side, but if we can understand how someone thinks and how they can add value to our team, that's maybe an interesting way to look at it.
Absolutely. This came up conference I was at last year where someone said, "What trait do you look for in people or in, somebody in treasury specifically?" And my response was curiosity, right? For people that are extremely curious, want to learn how and why things operate the way they do and how and why they can be improved. So I think that curiosity, and I think people either have it or they don't have it. And so I look for people that are just very curious and wanting to understand and expand their knowledge.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of the reasons why myself and a lot of people, and probably maybe yourself, love Treasury. Every day is different. So that curiosity just fuels that and a passion for learning. And that just fits well with all that we have to deal with in Treasury.
Yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
all right. So let's go one more round, a truth or a dare, and then I'll let you give me a dare. So you're going to go back for a truth or,
I'll go back for a
all
truth
right.
for sure.
This is a tough question, but it's near and dear to my heart, and it's one of the reasons I started the podcast. You remember maybe a couple decades ago, we did a good job of having programs at universities and telling them about Treasury. Is there something you think that we can be doing to increase the awareness of Treasury profession to maybe college people or people within organizations?
Great question, Ernie. I think there's several things that we should be doing as an industry. If you're able to, as an organization, to have internships with university students, whether it's finance, computer science, some of the different mathematics, as an example, I love working with interns. They have a thirst for knowledge. They're curious. I would say, importantly, they don't say no. And I say that they'll take on anything. They'll take on any project. They're very eager, and so and once you open up your person's eyes to Treasury, they oftentimes fall in love with it. I'll just give you an example for us at Treasury 4. She was an intern 3 years ago from Whitworth University here in Spokane, and now she's full time leading our AI and machine learning efforts. Whiz at mathematics, and she has fallen in love with the world of Treasury and the intersect of Treasury with the quantitative sciences. And so that's a great example. So the internships, I would say finance rotation
Hmm.
programs. When I was at Microsoft, they had a great finance rotation program where both interns and new hires that were in the finance function could spend 2 years,
Well,
every
yeah,
6 months, they could rotate into a
yeah,
different aspect of finance. And Treasury was one of the most popular areas. And I think the third is having the opportunity, take a little bit of maybe out of your comfort zone as a Treasury practitioner. If you know someone in a university who's an professor, go offer up to go do
right.
a special
Well,
guest
yeah.
lecture. And I've done that at Gonzaga University here in Spokane. And I've had people connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to learn more about Treasury. Can I come meet you for coffee? And so I think those things can really open up the next generation into the world of Treasury because there's no, I mean, other than the CTP, there's not really a degree program available, and Treasury is very much an experiential career path, and some of those experiences are hard to get because especially if they're types of transactions like a credit facility, debt issuance, maybe equity issuance, those things don't happen every day, and so you wanna try and get those experiences, as many of those as you can, because it creates much more optionality, for you in your career journey.
Well, I thank you for sharing and thank you for being willing to do that and being an ambassador of our profession. I've done that myself. One of my sons, when he went to Ball State, I went up and talked to folks in a finance class. So I've gone to Purdue. So the more people that we can get to do that, the better. So thank you for doing that. All right, let's go. All right, here we go. I'm going to let you give me a dare. So go ahead and go for it.
All right, a dare for you. Sing a few bars of your favorite karaoke song.
This is one of my new favorites. I don't know the words well enough. I'll just mash the words. Sing us a song of a piano man. Sing us a song tonight. All right, there you go.
That's great. That is a classic song,
Yeah.
Piano Man by Billy Joel.
Yeah, and I
So
always inspire people to teach their folks soft skills, and I always tell them to have them think about doing something like improv. So I found that's really interesting to help people think on their feet. So just some food for thought. Let's go for one more round. Ed, you gonna wrap us up with a truth today? What are you thinking?
I think a truth.
All
Yeah, let's
right.
do one more
All
truth.
right. Here's the I don't know if this is a truth. This is a thing that I've asked before, and I really like it. Would love to hear yours because you've had such great experience. I'm giving you 3 wishes to grant on behalf of the Treasury profession. What are they?
3 wishes to grant for the Treasury profession. Access to your data. Whatever data you need should be at your fingertips to use however you want to use it. So, not trapped in systems, but available and giving you the tools, and especially now with the advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And there's so many great tools to apply to that. So, I think access to your data. Two is I would love, and hopefully everybody that's a treasury practitioner would agree with this. And if you're on the bank side, you would agree with this. I would love to see industry standards, preferably APIs, that allow you to validate your account signatories and attributes on demand so that you know exactly who you're signing and have that fully automated every day because even the basics like that matter to Treasury. And I think the third area is the ability to your financial services and banking partners and get a much bigger data payload so that you understand transactions and can leverage that data however you need to use it, whether it's through AI or ML, reporting and analytics, reconciliation and automation, because that really drives back to the basics of every transaction at the end of the day, no matter what account it happens in, has to be reconciled. And so whatever data payloads that can be enhanced, automate that, I think is fantastic.
Thank you very much, Ed, for being a guest today. I love the conversation.
Great. Thank you, Ernie. Really a pleasure to see you again.
Yes, a very much pleasure to see you as well. Run across paths probably for over 20 years now. Now I have some exciting news preview. Thrilled to have Treasury 4 as a sponsor of my Cash Management Tech virtual forum. So looking forward to that as well. And for all of my listeners, have the courage to live your Treasury truths every day and dare to be great in everything that you do within and beyond Treasury. Until next time, everyone. Thanks for watching the show. I hope you guys liked it. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned and hit the subscribe button for more.